Hello, this is Meghnad and you're watching Sansad Watch, where we tell you what the leaders you elected have been doing for you. I have been away covering the elections, so we missed out on the first half of the budget session. That was between January 31st to February 11th. You might have already read the budget highlights, but here are a few interesting things that caught our eye and we think you should know about. The finance minister presented this year's budget with a heavy emphasis on planning for the next 25 years.
This budget seeks to lay the foundation and give a blueprint to steer the economy over Amritkal of the next 25 years, from India at 75 to India at 100.
The next 25 years are supposed to be an Amrit Kal for India by doing more capital investments in order to create jobs. What that means is that the government will put in more money into creating assets rather than just spending more on running the whole country. So towards that end, the finance minister introduced production-linked incentive schemes to kickstart job creation and to create 60 lakh new jobs over the coming 5 years. So that comes to about 60 by 5 is equal to... Okay, so that's about 12 lakh jobs a year. Sounds great, but wait. Now, according to their own Minister of Labour, in 2019, the government created 8 lakh jobs, and that is pre-pandemic. We don't have a comparable data figure for periods before 2019 because the government discontinued the old labour survey. So, in short, the finance minister has promised to increase jobs from 8 lakh a year to 12 lakh a year for the next 5 years. That's an increase of more than 30%. Oh, and confidence to dekho inka. On the side, they have slashed the Manrega budget to 73,000 crore instead of increasing it. We've covered why this is bad extensively. For more, watch this episode. Other than this, the finance minister got the crypto boys and girls all excited. She made a proposal to issue an RBI-approved digital rupee by next year using blockchain technology. Government issuing a cryptocurrency is like Shakti Kapoor giving gender sensitization lessons. It doesn't make sense. So, don't get too excited. The government is now going to flat tax the sale of any virtual digital asset at 30% plus 1% tax per transaction. But Sitharaman said that taxing virtual currencies does not imply that it has legal status.
I'm not doing anything to legalize it or ban it or not legalize it or anything at this stage.
Confused? How is the government taxing something that is not legal? Well, it's a grey area and the government hasn't really made up its mind about whether it's legal or not. So, till the time they do, they might as well earn some money from it. Watch this to know more what I mean. Moving on, questions were asked to the government in the first half and we got some interesting answers. In question hour, CPIM MP Binoy Viswam asked a question about sexual violence within marriages and the government's stand on marital rape. Smriti Irani responded to this saying this.
And to condemn every man in this country as a rapist is not advisable in this august house. Currently, over 30 helplines are functional in our country, which have assisted over 66 lakh women. Currently, there are 703 one-stop centers which are functional in this country, which have assisted over 5 lakh women. I speak, sir, not only as a member of this parliament, but also as somebody who has converged efforts with state governments, that protection of women and children in our country are a priority for all.
Another question was asked by MP Prasanna Acharya on whether the government is considering bringing a bill in this house to give a legal guarantee to minimum support price. The Agriculture Minister said that the committee to study MSP will be constituted after the 5 state elections. The decision to legalize MSP will be made following their recommendations. Now, the 5 state elections are over and we need to wait and watch, and we will be keeping a watch. Now that you're all caught up, let's move on to developments from last week. The second half of the budget session has resumed last Monday and here are the highlights. As coronavirus cases continue to fall, both the houses are back to regular functioning from 11 AM onwards. The parliament will no longer function in limited capacity and shorter durations due to COVID-19. Defense Minister Rajnath Singh made a statement regarding the missile misfiring incident. He said that the incident was unfortunate and a high-level investigation has been initiated. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar made a statement on the situation in Ukraine in both houses. Opposition MPs protested after they did not receive a copy of the statement in advance. When questioned about late advisories being issued by the government for Indian students to leave Ukraine, Jaishankar informed the House that students didn't want to leave because universities threatened to cancel their degrees. Union Minister for Education Dharmendra Pradhan told Lok Sabha that the government would consider making arrangements for the medical students returning from Ukraine to resume their education and become doctors. Sonia Gandhi raised the issue of Facebook and social media platforms being abused to target those who are speaking against the government. She said that the global social media companies are not providing a level playing field to all political parties. And finally, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman presented the budget for Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. The demand for grants were passed on Monday, the same day it was introduced, and that's what we are going to dive into today. Right. So Kashmir has been in the news after the release of Vivek Agnihotri's latest hit story, The Kashmir Files. While you were busy watching videos of audience members giving passionate genocidal speeches in movie theaters,
इस फिल्म की ना मूवी की टिकट जरूर गिफ्ट करें उस बहन को, ताकि आपकी बहन बेटियां या हमारे समाज की जितनी बहन बेटियां हिंदू समाज की वो लव जिहाद में ना फंसे.
You're destroying the Indian culture. You're destroying the life of our children.
while you were watching this, you might have missed out on a very important development regarding the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. The budget for the entire state was rammed through Parliament. On Monday, the budget was brought in after suspending a rule which says that discussions on budget cannot be held on the same day that it is presented. A truckload of budget documents in physical format arrived at the Parliament and were distributed right before the discussion started. Opposition MPs claimed that they have not been given enough time to go through the J&K budget documents and could not make constructive contributions to the discussion. That's why it shouldn't be held on the same day. The Jammu and Kashmir budget for this year totals 1.1 lakh crore rupees. Just as a comparison, in 2018-2019, back when Jammu and Kashmir was a state with its own assembly and not a central government controlled union territory, the size of the budget was 80,313 crore rupees. In 3 years, there has been a 40% increase in the allocation, which makes one thing clear. The central government wants to spend a lot more money on the state now that it is under their control. But where is this money going? Well, most of it is going into government salaries. 32,000 crore rupees worth of salaries, which comes to about 29% of the overall budget. Then another big chunk of 18,000 crore rupees is going towards welfare schemes. That comes to about 16%. More importantly, 17,000 crore rupees, which is 15% of the total budget, is going towards investments in new projects. That is the mota big item split, back of the hand. Here's the thing, the overall budget of the state has increased since the central government took over, but a giant chunk of it is still revenue expenditure, which means the government is spending more on running the government, which leaves less money for the government to build new things. Capital expenditure. In other words, less money is being spent on creation of assets which will create jobs. And Jammu and Kashmir really needs jobs right now. Last year in November, J&K recorded an unemployment rate of 22%. The highest among any other state in the country. That's 1/5 of the working population of the state, which was not working. In 2020, J&K Service Selection Board put out an advertisement for 8,000 Class 4 posts. A crazy 5.4 lakh people applied for those. If you were a candidate for this, there was a 1.4% probability of getting a Class 4 government job. This is even less likely than the Congress getting votes in Uttar Pradesh. Currently, the Jammu and Kashmir government employs about 4.5 lakh people. That's an unusually large number for a state with a population of 1.4 crore. Just as a comparison, Bihar, with 12.5 crore people, has about 3.1 lakh people employed by the government. The reason for this big demand for government jobs is the lack of secure opportunities in the private sector, which also explains why the government has to spend such a giant amount of money each year to pay salaries instead of putting it into investments. Now, the government claims that it has launched multiple schemes and programs to fix the employment situation in the state. Since the opposition MPs questioned the government on this, the finance minister gave a response listing out what it is doing. 1. 11,000 appointments have been made in various government departments in the last 1.5 years. Plus, 1,850 appointments have been made in Jammu and Kashmir Bank. So overall, the government has directly employed about 13,000 people. By the way, reminder. And number 2, more than 1.3 lakh people have been provided assistance for starting their own ventures. The finance minister also pointed out how the tourist footfall in the valley has been increasing, which would also lead to more employment opportunities. Well, that's all about the budget, just to give you an idea of how the state of Jammu and Kashmir is being currently run. In the end, since everybody is talking about Kashmiri Hindus, thank you Vivek ji, let me tell you about some facts now. How many people migrated out of Kashmir after militancy picked up in 1990s? 64,827. I'm just going to keep this figure here for ready reference. Take a look at this one question that was asked in November last year. Sukanta Muzumdar and 4 other MPs asked for details of the number of Hindus who have returned to Kashmir after the abrogation of Article 370 and number of such cases where the property has been restored to its rightful and original owner. The government responded saying a total of 1,678 migrants have returned to Kashmir for taking up the jobs under the Prime Minister's Development Package 2015, and the land of 150 applicants has been restored. The government has a portal for relief and rehabilitation in Jammu and Kashmir. So we obviously trawled through it to find any data we could get our hands on. Turns out a total of 525 people have applied for accommodation through the portal from 2009 till March 2020. There is also one circular from January this year which says that the transit accommodation has been provided for 208 migrants in Kulgam under the Prime Minister Package Employees Scheme. These are temporary accommodations owned by the government, just saying. So out of these, just another random fact for you, out of these, 44,837 people went on to settle in Jammu, while the rest went to Delhi and other parts of the country. So Kashmiri Hindus के लिए government ने क्या किया? देख लो, ये सब किया. So go watch the movie which brings forth the tragedy that occurred 30 years ago for these people, but also keep the reality of the state of Jammu and Kashmir in mind as it is today. That's all I have for you in this week's Sansad Watch. Remember, if you want to make Parliament great again, you need to watch it first. See you next week. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Sansad Watch. We are back and as you can see, थोड़ा सा set हमारा अब revamp हो रहा है. अब show भी थोड़ा सा revamp होगा. We are going to try and do new things in this show. So if you have any feedback, we would love to hear from you. If you are a follower of Sansad Watch and you want to know where it is going or you want to suggest where it should go, please leave a comment below. Don't forget to like it for the algorithms and also buy our merch, subscribe, and pay to keep news free. Thanks.
The subscription model is something that keeps News Laundry afloat, but we need hundreds of thousands of people to completely transform the news ecosystem. So you pay for news, so it serves you. So click on the link with this video, subscribe to News Laundry and pay to keep news free, और गर्व से कहो, मेरे खर्च पर आजाद है खबरें.